Today, I want to teach you some advanced irregular verbs that you need to know. That's coming up. Hey everyone, my name is Wes. This is Interactive English, which is all about helping you practice and improve your English skills. And today, I have an advanced grammar lesson for you because I want to teach you 15 irregular verbs that I think will help you improve your overall English fluency. Now, these irregular verbs in particular are not as common as verbs like go or have, but they are very useful, especially in specific situations, which is why they are a bit more advanced. So I'm going to give you the verb in 3 different forms: the present, the past, and the past participle. I will also tell you the meaning of the verb and then give you an example sentence so that you can see how it's used in context. The first verb that I have for you is arise, arose, arisen. That is the present, the past, and the past participle. And this just means to become apparent, to notice something. So to give you an example, I could use it in the past and say, new problems arose last week, which delayed the project. If you were working on something and problems arose, then that may delay the work that you're doing. Problems arose. Then we have the verb bear, bore, born. Notice that with the past participle, you may find it with the E or without the E. And this verb has a few different meanings. It can mean to turn slightly in one direction. It can also mean to accept something that is unpleasant, or to give birth or produce. So let me give you a few example sentences. I could say, if I'm giving directions, you need to bear to the left, or you need to bear to the right. This is a common way in which this verb is used in the present tense. Or perhaps I could say, he was the leader and bore the responsibility of his team. It was his team, so he bore the responsibility and had to accept maybe something unpleasant. And finally, I could use it in the present perfect and say, the apple trees have borne plenty of fruit this season. They have produced plenty of fruit, have borne. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, how can I not only learn these irregular verbs, but remember them as well? Well, the best way to do that is just to practice, practice, and practice some more. And a great way to get quality practice is to participate in the Lingoda language sprint. And Lingoda was kind enough to sponsor today's lesson. If you don't know about Lingoda, it is an online language school where you can take classes in English, German, Spanish, and French. And I have even studied at Lingoda. I have taken some Spanish classes. There I am, right there. And I can tell you it was a great classroom experience. So let me tell you about Lingoda's language sprint, because this is how you can make 2020 your year to become fluent in English. You'll also have the opportunity to get a 100% refund of your money. So Lingoda has decided to extend the deadline from the last sprint. So this is your last call, your last opportunity to start out 2020 with a bunch of great English lessons and truly improve your skills. There are 2 options that you can choose from. If you are motivated and serious about improving your English, then you can take the super sprint, in which you will take 1 class each day for 90 days. And if you successfully complete the super sprint, you will be eligible for a 100% refund. Now, if you would like a little more flexibility because of your schedule, then you can take the sprint, in which you would take 15 classes a month. And if you successfully complete the sprint, then you'd be eligible for a 50% refund. Now, you must sign up by January 27th because both the super sprint and sprint will begin on January 29th. For more information on costs, schedules, how to receive that refund, just click on the link in the description. But before you do that, Lingoda is offering you a €10 discount off your first month if you use the voucher code LASTCALL10. So if you are determined to improve your English, then check out the Lingoda Sprint. Click on the link in the description, use the voucher code LASTCALL10, and make 2020 your year to become fluent in English. The next verb I have for you is behold, beheld, beheld. So the past and the past participle are the same. And this verb just means to see or observe something. And often I think you may hear it being used in the context of like showing somebody something that you want them to see. And you'd say, behold, Behold, my water bottle. Now you'd want to show somebody something a little more exciting than a water bottle, but you get the idea as to how somebody might use this verb, behold, and then they would show somebody something that is important or maybe even a little surprising. The next verb is creep, crept, crept. Now this verb means to move slowly and carefully in order to avoid being heard. You don't want anybody to notice you. You don't want anybody to hear you. So you might creep through a room. And that's how I was going to use it in my example. And I was going to say, last night I crept into the kitchen and took a cookie. And that's actually a true story. Yes, last night I crept into the kitchen. And the reason that I crept into the kitchen is that, well, I felt a little guilty. So I didn't want anybody to hear me, and I crept into the kitchen. Notice how many times I say these verbs. I do that for a reason, so you will hear it again and again and again, because this works. This will help you remember. Then we have deal, dealt, dealt. And this verb has a couple of different meanings. It can mean to distribute cards, or that you have some kind of business in commercial trading and you are buying and selling things. I think most often you would use it in the context of a card game and playing cards, and somebody would deal the cards. So I can give you an example sentence in which you could actually use all three forms of this verb. I could say, she deals the cards in the present tense. Or in the past, she dealt the cards. Or if I want to use the past participle, I could give you a sentence in the present perfect. She has dealt the cards. Then we have forsake, forsook, forsaken. And this verb means to abandon or to give up. For example, I think of usually some kind of promise or commitment was abandoned. People take vows. So somebody could say, he has forsaken his vows. He has abandoned his commitment, his promises. He has forsaken his vows. Now, the next two verbs cause a lot of confusion, and I hope to clear up some of that confusion right now. So let's just start with lie, lay, lain. And this verb means to assume a resting position or to be kept in a specific state. That's where you are. So let me give you an example. I will use it in the past, and I'd say, well, I didn't feel well. I lay in bed all day. That this happened in the past. I assumed that resting position in my bed and I lay in bed. Don't confuse this with the other meaning of the verb, which is to say something that's not true. That is actually a regular verb and ends in ed. But still, this irregular verb, lie, lay, lain, is confused with another irregular verb, which is lay, laid, laid. And this verb means to put something down or to prepare something. Lay, laid, laid. So let me give you an example, and we'll start with putting something down. Again, I can use one sentence and use all three forms. For example, I could say, we lay the baby on the bed in the present tense. Or in the past, we laid the baby on the bed. Or using the past participle, we have laid the baby on the bed. We have put the baby down. Then to give you an example with its other meaning, to prepare something, I think you may hear somebody say, we've already laid the groundwork for this project. Laid the groundwork. They have prepared for the start of this project. To lay the groundwork. So please don't confuse these verbs. Lie, which is to assume a resting position, lie in bed, or lay, which is to put something down. I'm gonna lay my head down on the pillow. Then we have mean, meant, meant. And this, I think, is actually a very common verb, but the meaning can be a little challenging. And what this verb means is to intend to refer to something. Often I think it's used when we're talking about questions. Well, what does this mean? I might ask students, well, what does this word mean? Or if I want to use it in the past and say, well, that is not what I was referring to, you may hear somebody say, well, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I didn't want to refer to this thing. That's not what I meant. Then we have the verb overtake, overtook, overtaken. And this verb means to come from behind and move in front of. Often I think you would hear this verb used in the context of driving because cars pass each other all the time and you might want to overtake a car that is in front of you. I can give you an example and say, well, we overtook the bus because it was driving so slow. So we came from behind and went in front of the bus, we overtook the bus. Then we have the verb rise, rose, risen. This verb has a couple of different meanings. The first one is to move from a lower position to a higher position. And the next meaning is just to get up. So let's start with the first meaning and I'll give you an example. And I could give you a simple sentence and use all three forms. I could say, well, the sun rises. Or in the past, the sun rose, or using the past participle, the sun has risen. And if I want to say get up, I often think of the expression rise and shine. And somebody would say this just telling somebody else to get up, it's time to start your day, rise and shine. Next is the verb swear, swore, sworn. And this verb means that you are making a promise to do something. Swear, swore, sworn. And let me give you another example in which you could use all three forms in this one sentence. I could say, he swears to tell the truth. Or in the past, he swore to tell the truth, or he has sworn to tell the truth. Often I think it's used in that context of you're making a promise in which you are going to tell the truth. I think it's also used as a question, and somebody would just ask, do you swear? Do you promise? Or they might say, do you swear on something that is important, which in that case, it's kind of an expression which means, well, you really have to be serious about this promise, to swear on something. Then we have shake, shook, shaken. And this verb means to move something up and down or from side to side or even to tremble. And I could use it and give you an example and just say, when we met, we shook hands. I often think of this verb being used talking about introductions and people shaking hands. Or to give you an example about trembling, I think, well, in that case, I think somebody is very cold. And not only that, but I think it would often be used in the continuous tense. So I could say, well, last night was very cold and I was shaking. I was shaking as I lay in bed. Next is weep, wept, wept. And this verb means just, to cry or to shed tears. And often I think it would be used in a context that is a little more serious, a little more severe, in which you would say that you wept. You were crying a lot. For example, I could say that after the breakup, he wept for days. He was so sad, he wept for days. Then we have withdraw, withdrew, withdrawn. And this verb means to remove something or to take something back. So when I think of this verb, I think it's often used in the context of money. And you could say, well, she has withdrawn all her money from the bank account. She has removed it from her account. Or maybe you want to apply for a job and then you decide that you don't want it. And I can give you an example and use all three forms and say, I withdraw my name from consideration. Or I withdrew my name from consideration, or I have withdrawn my name from consideration. So there you have it. Those are 15 advanced irregular verbs that I think you need to know because these verbs are more specific. They allow us to give more information when we find ourselves in certain situations. I hope that you can now go out and use these verbs and practice them, and I hope you learn some new ones as well. And if you did, please hit that like button down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.